Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Kirby Smart, the Georgia Bulldogs, working their way through spring practice. One of the benefits of recruiting the way Kirby Smart and Georgia does is that you're going to have freshmen coming in that have the opportunity to help this football team and play early for Georgia in 2025. You're starting to hear some rumblings of some freshmen that are starting to put a stamp on what they can do for Georgia going into 2025. I think one of the more fascinating parts about this conversation is every single name we're about to talk about. We covered when they committed to Georgia over the last couple of years. Now we get to revisit it, kind of check in terms of where their development is, and talk about the role that they can play for Georgia early in 2025. And one of the overarching takes I think a lot of Georgia fans have about this team specifically on offense is, look, we got some question marks about Georgia on the offensive side of the football, at the quarterback spot, on the offensive line, the pass catcher department. Yes, you have a lot of questions, and the national media is certainly going to talk about those questions for the next couple of months. I think a lot of Georgia fans who follow this program pretty damn closely, y'all know there's a lot of answers on this roster as well, specifically on offense. And because you have maybe a little more questions than usual, it kind of gives a unique opportunity for some of these freshmen to really kind of get an opportunity to show what they can do in spring practice and get on the football field in 2025. Want to talk about some of these names, talk about who the player is, what they can bring to Georgia in 2025. Before we get into it, as always, the Georgia fans appreciate you guys. And a lot of y'all rock with the fellas in the summer as we break down these commitments. The amount of support y'all have shown the fellas, whether it's in the winter, spring, summer months, it means the world to the boys. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. And I want to start with the kid that I just think's flying under the radar. And again, we talked about him when he committed to Georgia. Kind of gets overshadowed by Alice Williams. Ethan Barbour. He's only 6'3", 235. I'm not going to make the comp to Brock Bowers because I don't think I'll ever make a comp to Brock Bowers in my life, for the same reasons that I think Brock Bowers really was able to excel at Georgia over the last couple of years. I think Ethan Barbour has that kind of chance too. Now, he's not quite as the juiced up athlete that Brock Bowers was. I mean, Brock Bowers, 4.55 in the 40 coming out of high school, 40-inch vert. He was a true specimen from an athletic profile standpoint. But what made Brock Bowers not only just really good, what made him special was the fluidity, the body control, the coordination, the diverse route tree that just not a lot of tight ends have. That's what stands out to me about Ethan Barbour's game. He is not the biggest, strongest, fastest tight end that we saw in the 2025 class. But when you turn on the film, really diverse route tree, really comfortable work in the middle of the field, elite ball skills when the football is in the air. He's not the juiced up athlete that Brock Bowers was, but a very similar stature. And I would say a very similar type of game that Brock Bowers brought to the table. And I think that separates a lot of tight ends. Look, we see all sorts of tight ends that are really big and can run really fast in a straight line. Are they as fluid? Are they as coordinated as Brock Bowers? No. I think Ethan Barbour has that fluidity. I think he has that coordination that is going to allow him to excel as a tight end at Georgia. I think the question mark with Ethan Barbour and something that he's going to have to answer between now and kickoff in the fall is, can you get it done inline blocking like what we expect Georgia tight ends to do? Can you get it done blocking on the perimeter like we expect Georgia tight ends to do? But as a route runner, as a pass catcher, you're hearing him show out in spring practice. And I kind of revisited some of that senior year stuff and said, it kind of makes sense. He's not a guy that's going to get talked about a ton on the recruiting trail because the height, weight, speed metrics aren't jumping out the page. And a lot of times we kind of gravitate to the height, weight, speed metrics. It's a really good football player that can provide a ton of value in the passing attack for Georgia. We'll see if it can be immediately in 2025, but he's starting to garner a little bit of buzz about getting on the football field in the 2025 year. Another name that I'm sure many Georgia fans are hearing the buzz around is Bo Walker. You go back and visit Bo Walker coming out of high school. he's a guy that you're not too surprised that it has the opportunity to get on the football field early because he is a no nonsense running back. And that's what holds back a lot of running backs when they make that jump from the high school to the SEC ranks. And they're used to being the biggest, strongest, fastest player on the high school football field. All of a sudden, they're not anymore. They sometimes have some growing pains because they're not all that developed as an actual running back. You turn on the film with Bo Walker, he is a guy that wants to attack the line of scrimmage. He runs with no nonsense, kind of getting vertically downhill, and he's got really good feel for the running back position. Kind of the similar conversation we had with Ethan Barbour. He's not the biggest, strongest, fastest running back, although he runs with some real physicality and has some real short area quicks. He's got a really good feel for being a ball carrier. He's patient. He knows how to diagnose what's in front of him. That's the type of stuff that's going to allow you to get on the football field early. And we kind of talked about it. You look at guys like Branson and guys like Rodriguez, they've been struggling with injuries. And it's kind of like, if you don't put it together, you better get off the tracks because you got some freshmen coming in that can play. And it sounds like Bo Walker is that guy. Very similar to how Nate Frazier came in and pressed early. You're hearing kind of similar things about Bo Walker. Now, I think Nate Frazier was a little bit more gifted in terms of the juice that he brought, but Bo Walker can play, and it sounds like he's going to contribute for Georgia in the 2025 year. Two more names on the offensive side of the football, one Juan Gaston. What fires me up about this kid is Georgia wants him to get down to 340 pounds, which makes sense, right? He came in 6'7". I think he came in around 370 pounds. Got to rework the body a little bit. And Georgia's had a lot of success reworking the bodies of some of these offensive linemen. You turn on the senior year stuff from Juan Gaston, the athleticism was never all that big of a concern. Like, he moves just a little bit differently for that size of a human being. What's it going to look like when he gets that body right? When he gets down to 340 pounds? Look, the way these tackles played for Georgia in 2024, they ain't no guaranteed starters on that team. And yeah, you would expect Monroe, Freeland, and Ernest Green to kind of be your starters going into spring ball. Make no mistake about it, if they don't step up their game, Juan Gaston's coming. And I know he's a true freshman, and I know it's very rare for true freshmen to play in the SEC at the offensive tackle position. Well, Juan Gaston's a rare cat. If he gets the body right, he's going to be really intriguing to talk about in fall camp. And the other thing I'd say about Juan Gaston is the project number one for Georgia is get back that running game. You know who's going to be able to do that as a true freshman? Big Juan Gaston, because there was not a more powerful people mover offensive lineman coming out of high school than a guy like Juan Gaston. Georgia's looking around the football better in 2025. Juan Gaston will be able to help in that department, zero doubt in my mind. He's a riser. He's already looking the part early in spring practice. What's it going to look like coming out of summer workouts going into fall camp? Last one on the offensive side of football, Talyn Taylor. And to me, what's going to allow him to play, and you got a couple talented guys, right? CJ Wiley's another name that I think a lot of Georgia fans are excited about. This is not a knock on CJ Wiley. I think CJ Wiley's just going to have a tougher time getting on the football field with Colby Young coming back, with Noah Thomas coming in. Those are some big X receivers that, probably are just further along than a guy like CJ Wiley is. Now, in Talyn Taylor's case, the kind of role he's going to play for Georgia, whether it's at the Z, whether it's in the slot, that's wide open, in my opinion. And I think what's so unique about Talyn Taylor is, one, he's a really polished wide receiver. And I'm not going back to the Ethan Barbour conversation here, but another guy that wasn't he wasn't like CJ Wiley. You know what CJ Wiley, what we talked about was like that size, sub 11 in the 100-meter dash. That's a special height, weight, speed combo. Talyn Taylor is not necessarily the fastest in a straight line, but he's a really polished route runner that has a really diverse route tree. Those are the type of things that get you on the football field early as a freshman. And I think the versatility, he could play out on the boundary at the Z. He could play in the slot as well. The more versatility you have, the easier it is to get him on the football field. And he offers a lot of juice after the catch, and Georgia's looking for that. They're looking for guys that, hey, when we get the football to you in space, can you go make plays for us? That's why they brought in Zachariah Branch. I think that's why Talyn Taylor can contribute too early. Last name, and not necessarily a surprise, but really the only defender that I think will play early, and maybe Isaiah Gibson too. Isaiah Gibson's got a shot. but Elijah Griffin will. And you're hearing all the right things, and he's not getting a ton of buzz because this was kind of the expectation for this kid. This was about as blue chip as it gets on the interior defensive line. Freaky athletic testing combined with the 6'4", 310 frame, and he carries that 310 exceptionally well. He's going to play. The question is, how much is he going to play, and what's the impact going to be? And again, it's rare to see freshmen come in the SEC along the line of scrimmage and dominate. Very similar to how we talked about Juan Gaston. Elijah Griffin's a rare cat and has the ability. And again, what's most important is you're hearing all the right things. Like sometimes you have 5 stars next to your name and it doesn't click immediately in college. For Elijah Griffin, it sounds like it's clicking. Really fun group of freshmen to watch, and kind of a diverse group of freshmen. Some are just the freaks like Elijah Griffin, Juan Gaston, but some like an Ethan Barbour. Those guys are probably not the most popular freshmen to talk about, but sound like they're having an excellent spring and bring a set of traits that I think is unique and will allow them to get on the football field. It's part of the benefit of recruiting the way Georgia does. You get guys who are freshmen coming in playing early. That'll do it for us. We got a scrimmage, I believe, Saturday. We'll talk about what we hear. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, been a blast. The amount of support means the world. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.